Many discussions have arisen about Kurapika's strength, some believing he's absolutely godly and others thinking he's total trash. Of course, my goal, much like the Chrollo and Netero videos, is to break him down honestly and his abilities and how he stacks up in the Hunter x Hunter world. If you guys enjoy Hunter x Hunter content, then hey, leave a subscribe, leave a like, it's much appreciated, and we'll be making a lot more Hunter x Hunter content going forward. As always, thank you guys for watching. Kurapika's power is often not fully understood, with many people looking down on him compared to the more blatant examples of strength, like Killua blitzing around Yuppie, Chrollo boxing with top-tier Zoldyck assassins, and etc. Kurapika requires a more precise and detailed explanation beyond basic feat scaling. This will be explained more later, but I want to get this basic explanation out of the way before we dive into the more complicated ideas. Kurapika has always been gifted, both physically and intellectually. In some extra chapters that go over his backstory, a prepubescent Kurapika gets mad and activates his scarlet eyes, bodying 3 grown men in 1 or 2 punches each. This is one of the things that make Kurapika different than Gon or Killua, whose strength and talent comes from their upbringing. Kurapika's is more supernatural. There's still a lot of mystery behind these scarlet eyes, but we do know they are awakened by fury and cause the Kurta to lose their rationality and increase their strength. When active, they even increase Kurapika's aura and change him from a conjurer to a specialist. I won't touch on it too much since this is only a theory, but some hypothesize that the Kurta originally originated from the Dark Continent and that the scarlet eyes might be tied to Nen. It's even theorized that they are the reason why Meteor City is in total ruin, which would explain why some Kurta clan warriors could put up a decent enough fight that Uvogin would remember them, and why they have the moniker the Red-Eyed Monsters. Part of this explains why Kurapika could so quickly create his Nen abilities. People equate Kurapika to an irrational novice with Nen, usually because of Gon and Killua, who show a lot more of this whole Nen novice theme during the Heaven's Arena, York New, and Greed Island arcs. These people fail to see that Kurapika's training and determination was starkly different compared to Gon and Killua's. During Heaven's Arena, Gon and Killua trained for 2 days. That's it. They spent 1 day learning 10 before Gon was forbidden from training, and then learned Ren and Gyo the 2nd day. They just honed the basics after that. And this was pretty much all for fun. Greed Island was the first time either of them seriously trained, and we saw the huge leaps and bounds they accomplished there. Kurapika, on the other hand, likely trained the full 6 months before York New, heavily motivated by his intense hatred and determination against the troupe. Nen is heavily tied to emotion, with the potential to push Nen beyond 100% capacity. Gon's lust for vengeance brought him from below Knuckle and Shoot to a level that had Neferpitou and Shiapoof a little spooked, and enough to end Morel with a single John Ken. He's motivated to hunt the Troupe, a band of Class A bounties and the strongest fighters in the underworld, not having fun and the generic goal of getting stronger. With his fierce determination combined with his high intelligence and special Nen eyeballs, it stands to reason he'd get so strong in a short amount of time. Kurapika becomes a bodyguard for the Nostrad family and quickly becomes the head bodyguard after Dalzone is killed by Finks, and every other bodyguard respects his ability and intelligence. Here he fights Uvogin, in pretty much his only serious exchange in the entire manga. Of course, this means much of Kurapika's scaling is reliant on how strong Uvogin is, which is complicated to say the least. There's a lot to say about Uvogin. Seriously, a lot. Even recently, Togashi was hyping him up in his new Nen exposition, showing he's still a far superior enhancer than Chimera Ant Arc Gon, somebody who would one-shot officer class Chimera Ants, and his John Ken which terrified Knuckle and Morel, combatants capable of fighting squadron leader tier Chimera Ants. There's also the fact Nobunaga thought it would be impossible to defeat Uvogin without cheating, or the fact that the volume cover of Volume 9 straight up calls him one of the strongest troupe members. Uvogin is known as the physically strongest in the troupe through many statements, but among these is a statement from Chrollo where he claims Uvogin is all but unstoppable unless you have manipulator or conjuration powers to defeat him, those powers being to neutralize his strength. Not only does this mean Uvogin can beat any troupe member in a fistfight, but it's possible all of their abilities that don't outright neutralize his powers are useless against him. Franklin, Nobunaga, Autopilot Shalnark, and Benolanov should all be vastly inferior to Uvogin, and even thinks his Ripper Cyclotron might be too inefficient to defeat him. After all, he needs to charge it up 7 to 8 times just to defeat a Chimera Ant officer, ants that Gon can take out with normal punches, let alone Uvogin. He should also scale far above Chrollo's physical feats, such as swapping hands with Silva and Zeno Zoldyck at the same time, without even using Nen abilities at first. Despite watching this guy almost effortlessly take out 3 of the strongest Nen users in the Mafia with nothing but his head, Kurapika still thinks he can take him. Uvogin is baffled by the aura in Kurapika's chain and hits him with a punch he claims only enhancers should be able to block, while only being at 20% of his strength. If Uvogin is telling the truth, Uvogin may already be superior to the likes of Phaeton, Chrollo, or Hisoka while at only 20% power, yet Kurapika brushes it off like it's nothing. Even at 50%, Kurapika effortlessly outboxes Uvogin, tossing around and blitzing a dude possibly numerous times stronger than Chrollo. Uvogin goes all out and claims that no exposed flesh, be it enhancer or not, can stop his full power Big Bang impact, which obviously shatters Kurapika's arm. However, by now Kurapika's trap had been set. Kurapika had already wrapped his chain around Uvogin and used Een so Uvogin wouldn't see it. He then activated Chain Jail, winning the fight. Detractors will look down on Uvogin, arguing that Nen combat is about more than raw power, and since Uvogin is a mindless brute, he would lose to any competent fighter, listing other true members like Finks or Nobunaga. This sentiment is somewhat true, but falls short when you pay closer attention to the manga. Firstly, strategy and skill can't always defeat raw power, as displayed through many fights such as Yuppie vs the Extermination Team, Gon vs Heaven's Arena, Pito vs Kite, and so on. Enhancers are described as the most balanced in combat, and Wing advises Gon to not bother making some overcomplicated ability when enhancing his body is all he needs. Uvogin is also far more skilled and intelligent than he might give off right away. Despite having his superior strength neutralized, Uvogin was able to defeat the Shadow Beasts using nothing but his head, and quickly analyzed Kurapika's abilities mid-battle. He even tried using the terrain and Een to catch Kurapika by surprise, but Kurapika noticed imperceptible changes in the dust and reacted last minute to full power Uvogin. Most of the other true members, when faced with physically superior opponents, like Phaeton vs Zazan, just go straight to using their full power abilities without showing any notable intelligence. Not to say they are stupid, just that Uvogin's battle IQ feats shouldn't be looked down upon. Even in their youth, Chrollo originally nominated Uvogin to be the leader of the troop, something which would obviously require a degree of intelligence and wisdom. So we're talking about a guy contending for the straight up physically strongest character without hacks in the series, pre-Chimera Ant arc, with the only possible exception being Razor, who could overpower Hisoka with fractions of his overall aura, and of course Chairman Netero. But also some pretty good intelligence and the skill and ingenuity of a seasoned warrior. And here's Kurapika blatantly outwitting and bodying this guy in what the databooks call an overwhelming victory. At the very least, this proves Kurapika has the raw strength and aura to contend with any member of the Phantom Troupe, bare minimum. This is because of Kurapika's Nen ability, Emperor Time, which gives him mastery in all forms of Nen, including enhancement, making it possible for him to block Uvogin's attacks. The reason for these dramatic amps and Emperor Time is Kurapika roiding out on Nen restrictions. Restrictions and contracts are multiplications upon Nen, so the more restrictions you make, the stronger your Nen will be. Gon's John Ken, with its small charge time, slightly increases its power. Kurapika took this concept to the next level. For Kurapika to even use Emperor Time results in drastic physical fatigue and cuts an hour off his life for every second he uses Emperor Time. Now, if you do some basic math, that's wasting Kurapika's life 3,600 times faster than it normally would. And I'm not saying he gets 3,000 times stronger, but you get the idea. It's a huge contract. So take his overpowered Nen eyeballs, intense resolve that amps him beyond 100%, which is then multiplied by top tier Nen restrictions. Him beating Uvogin is a lot more believable now. This could also explain why Kurapika in the databook has such low stats compared to most top tier fighters. being 3s across the board compared to Chrollo or even Gon having 4s. These stats are just rating base Kurapika, not his amps with Emperor Time. Outside of his surprisingly top tier physical strength, Kurapika wields an arsenal of chains which he uses in combat. Most of these are utility powers like the dowsing chain, which lets him tell if people are lying or tracking people on a map. With Emperor Time activated, he could even tell if people were lying through a computer screen, which he describes as sensing imperceptible changes in their demeanor which transcend his perception. He also wields the Holy Chain of Healing, which instantly heals the broken arm he got from Uvogan, a very advanced application of enhancement Nen, as no character in the series has shown regeneration on this scale. Kurapika's most notable hacks abilities are the Chain Jail and Judgment Chain. Chain Jail is Kurapika's main weapon against the troupe and forces them into a state of Zetsu, meaning they can only try breaking out with raw strength alone. Seeing as Uvogan, the physically strongest of the troupe, could not escape the chains, means no member of the troupe can escape either. Once again, Kurapika made this ability so powerful with contracts, promising to only use Chain Jail on troop members at the cost of his life. Judgment Chain is less combat applicable, but he uses it to put a Nen dagger on people's hearts with the threat of stabbing them if they break Kurapika's conditions. He uses this ability on Chrollo to completely strip away his use of Nen, however this ability is not the same as Chain Jail. While requiring more conditions, Judgment Chain doesn't just work on the Phantom Troupe, and could be used on anyone, meaning if Kurapika ever managed to land the Judgment Chain and establish his conditions on anyone, he could strip them of their Nen, which is basically a way more busted version of Knuckles' Hako-Ware ability. Although I will admit, Kurapika only uses this ability when his opponents are already subdued, so it might not be the fastest or the best in combat. Recently in the manga, Kurapika joins the Zodiacs in place of Jing to participate in the journey to the Dark Continent and hunt down the 4th Prince of Kakin, Sridnik, in the last set of the Scarlet Eyes. It's on this boat that Kurapika discovers the Succession War, a battle for the throne of all 14 princes of the royal family, each blessed with a guardian Nen beast with some of the most busted abilities the series has seen so far. Kurapika becomes the bodyguard of the youngest prince, and almost every other bodyguard working with him ends up assassinated by rival princes. Despite being up against seasoned generals, princes, and political manipulators with dozens to hundreds of soldiers at their disposal, Kurapika manages to gaslight everyone there and form a stalemate, basically by himself. He then develops a new ability, the Steel Chain and Stealth Dolphin, which enables him to steal Nen abilities and temporarily give them to other people, even people that don't have Nen to begin with. It cannot be overstated that Kurapika's intelligence even as a teenager is pretty much top tier, and he effectively outmaneuvered everyone around him even with every single disadvantage. Of course, Kurapika is on a boat with Hisoka, the entire Phantom Troupe, the Zodiacs, the son of Isaac Netero, Jing Freaks, an army of Psycho Mafia Nen users, the ability to undo death, the highest level of Nen output and defense we've ever seen, and 4th Prince Sridnik, a talent with Nen which even surpasses Gon and Killua, who accidentally created the ability to see and influence the future. All of these people are on their way to the Dark Continent, the homeland of the Chimera Ants and the 5 great calamities that threaten to destroy the world. It stands to reason Kurapika would need great power and intelligence to compete.